to the First Step podcast with your host, Jhalisa John. A new episode starts right now. So I had this idea to talk about entrepreneurship for a while now, and I was thinking who would be the perfect person to have on the podcast with me, and there was no one else better than this guy here who I'm going to introduce, Keron Rose. I honestly don't believe there's anyone else in Trinidad right now in the entrepreneurship space who creates as much content and is adding as much value as Keron in this space. So Keron, welcome to the First Step podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And I want to ask you, when did you realize that entrepreneurship was something that you wanted to pursue?
For me, it was the moment I came to the realization that working for people just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Trying to fit into some organizations when you have so much to offer and realizing that you can't always make the change that you want from within. And sometimes you need to build your own company. I realized, you know what? I think it's time I do my own thing.
Mm-hmm. And so when you realized that working a 9 to 5 wasn't for you, what business did you then set out to launch?
So I started Droid Island. Now, Droid Island was my way of, I had looked at the smartphone tech community within Trinidad, and I realized that there was some major things lacking that the companies like Digicel and B Mobile were not providing, and that was simply expertise in the field. I mean, we all use our phones for so many different things, and I decided that I wanted to build something that would be able to educate Trinidad and Tobago, and also by extension the Caribbean region on mobile technology. So I decided to jump out and start that.
Okay, and how was that experience for you?
It has been eye-opening because, I mean, when you are starting down a path, I mean, nobody could ever prepare you for, the obstacles that you're going to come across. You never know who you're going to meet. And I mean, you start out trying to build one thing, and then you start to realize, either where things are going to work or where you need to adjust. So I never thought I would have been on this journey the way that it has kind of unfolded.
That's something that I can definitely relate to, and I'm sure all entrepreneurs can relate to, because when you start a business, you have an idea and you sort of think it's going to end up a certain way, and then you realize, wait a minute,
Nope.
what's happening? What's happening? There's so much nobody told me.
Yeah.
What do I do? And then 10 years later, you find yourself in a completely different space that you thought you were going to end up. And do you remember our first conversation?
We've had so many.
No, but like our first conversation was on LinkedIn. And I think you always used to be popping up on my feed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who the hell is this? Why am I seeing him every single day? And I think you did a video, and I can't remember what the video was about, probably about B Mobile or something. And I commented on it, and then you sent me a message. And I was like, wow, that video was really cool. And I said, can I be your protege?
Oh, yes.
And you laughed. You're like, okay, but what do you do? Because I was so impressed. Because no one else, like I said, is creating the type of value, specifically when it comes to technology and smartphones and things like that. In Trinidad, no one else is creating that type of value for consumers.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed by that video. And so that's how we connected.
Yeah.
Right? And you have grown to become one of the entrepreneurs that I admire. So I want to ask you, who are some entrepreneurs that you admire?
Are we talking in general? Are we talking locally?
in general?
In general, man, I would say the number one person that really blew my mind away and opened up my eyes was Gary Vaynerchuk. To me, Gary V is the OG of new age entrepreneurship. Um, Listening to him, listening to his talks, and understanding his perspective, it changed my perspective of business in the digital age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Secondly, the most important person to me thus far has been, and I talk about him a lot, is Daniel Priestley.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Priestley, the stuff that he talks about with respects to digital business is just jaw dropping and mind blowing all at the same time. Um, love his work. And I think the third person that I admire the most when it comes to entrepreneurship is the founder of Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, a guy named Jay Jones. He has motivated me to want to be better, especially because he lives in America and he is always talking about why entrepreneurship is the savior for Black people given the climate that we are in. And we need to become more self reliant and do more things to ourselves in entrepreneurship, and specifically building digital businesses and creating e commerce is the way that we can become more self reliant, as the bar for entry is so low that we can start from so many different places without having to need capital, which, as we know, is one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs typically face when they're trying to build businesses. So
Right.
Gary Vee, Daniel Priestley, Jay Jones. Those are my three. Those are my three heavy hitters.
So, what do you think about this theory that everyone can be an entrepreneur?
I think you have to distinguish between what is a solopreneur and an entrepreneur. And I think not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurs are the people that are the ones that are going to be hiring people at the end of the day, whether it's a small team, a medium sized team, or whether you go on to build a multi-million billion dollar corporation. Those have all typically been started by entrepreneurs. I think a solopreneur is a solopreneur is somebody who is essentially self-employed that works within their business. I think everybody can be a solopreneur. I don't think everybody has the capacity to manage a team or to coach a team or to build a team. But I think everybody has a skill set that they can now, even if you want to just work within your business and work for yourself, I think everybody can definitely be a solopreneur.
Wow. Like, that is literally the best explanation I've ever heard to distinguish this term solopreneur. This is something new to me. Um,
Yeah,
I think I've seen it around, but I just assumed it was the same thing as entrepreneur.
yeah, and
But
that's really the key difference is solopreneurs are going to be just working for themselves. So let's just say if you're good at making graphics, you could be a solopreneur and you could just take gigs working on Fiverr, Upwork, any of those platforms that allow you to just go and take gigs and apply your services, and you could do that, right? Anybody could do that. The
wow.
entrepreneurship is where I think it's a bit more difficult when you're starting to look to build out a team.
Yeah.
That's going to take a lot more skill set and a lot more nuances that not everybody I think can do.
So for those people who one day want to have a team, want to hire people, like what are some of your tips for entrepreneurs who want to have large businesses where they're not the only people working in it?
Um, Building a team now more than ever, given how millennials think and what motivates millennials that are working in businesses, you need to have alignment. You have to understand who you are as a person. You need to understand what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you need to really find people who believe in your mission that you're building, and find people that complement where you are weak. The good thing is that with the digital age, there's so many technologies and systems that you can put in place so that you don't necessarily have to build a big team to have a big business. And I think the more we can learn to leverage technology and keep teams smaller while we are expanding and creating more commerce for ourselves, I think that's going to be it's going to be so much more helpful when you're managing 5, 10, 15 personalities versus when you are trying to expand and now your team is 30 plus and you have to manage all of those as well. But definitely alignment is going to be key because when you're hiring people who don't really believe in what you're trying to do, that's where the workplace can be very dicey and can become toxic because you're trying to motivate people to do things that they aren't themselves inspired to do.
I definitely agree with that. You talk a lot about alignment and just in general, you have some pretty amazing tips, right? So I want to know what's your secret or some of your secrets to being a successful entrepreneur in this digital age.
Um, well, I think success, everybody has their own definition of success. For me, I still look at myself as I'm in the learning stages. There's so much that I am learning constantly and I'm implementing so that I can, get my own results and see how it works for me. Um, the biggest tip I have for entrepreneurs is never stop learning. Every single day is a learning experience, and you need to be focusing on where are good sources for you to learn from because there's so many times where you might get stuck and you're not necessarily stuck, you're just missing a piece of information to get you over the hump. And a lot of times you see people where they get comfortable with the knowledge that they know and they don't think that anything more can be done. But when you're always learning, you're always looking for sources of information, you're always trying to add to your arsenal of knowledge, you become very resourceful and you can solve problems a lot faster than anybody else. So tip number one is never stop learning. And also, I think what's so important for me is filtering your social media. So for me, we spend so much time on social media for business, but social media can get very toxic depending on the type of content that you're consuming. What helps me so much is that I have filtered my social media in such a way where when I go on Instagram or Facebook, I might have a lot of friends that I've muted. So I don't see their content because a lot of the times you're friends with people, but they don't post anything that's going to help you as an entrepreneur or help you in your day to day life. But you don't want to be the person to unfollow them or you make them feel like, there's an issue between them. A lot of people I've muted and I subscribe to tons of accounts where it's either business tips, it's people that I want to learn from because I read their books or I've subscribed to their programs and I'm following them on social media so I can keep on learning from them. I subscribe to a lot of pages that are motivational so that when I'm scrolling through my social media, I am either learning or being inspired. And that is all the stuff I see. And that helps me so much because there's so much content that I create because I see something, get an idea. Oh, shoot, this would be good. And this is how I can make it work for our market here. Because not everything we see online or see from people will it work in our market. And we have to be smart enough to know which is what and how to now turn that and create it into something for ourselves. So social media and tailor because we spend so much time trying to tailor it so that it's not a waste of time that you're spending on it.
I definitely agree with that. That is something that I have also done. Like I mute the hell out of people,
Yeah.
especially, and not just because I don't consume their content or it's not for me. But also, I mute people whenever I find myself becoming envious of their success. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, it's not that I'm hating, but I find myself just wishing I was in their position, and I have to take a step back and say, hey, you can't compare your
Yeah.
journey to theirs. And so I would temporarily mute them and try to work on my own shit to the point
Especially,
where I no longer feel envious of anybody. And
yeah,
then I could unmute them and be happy for them, because here's the thing, entrepreneurship is all about mindset,
yeah.
right? And
It's a
if
lifestyle.
you're, yeah, if you're constantly going on social media and you're seeing other people who are already successful, enjoying their lives, that is going to mess with you. And
Yeah.
it's going to distract you from working on your own things.
It's
And
human nature
so,
to compare.
yeah, so definitely working on your mindset, protecting your space is essential to being a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I know you love to read books. So,
Yes.
since this is the first step, I want you to tell us, what is the first book every entrepreneur should read to build their mindset or improve their mindset?
Um, for me, it's a tie. Like there are two books that go hand in hand that I think if you want to be an entrepreneur in today's age, in the digital age, you need to read these two books for two different reasons. The two books are Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk and Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley. You want to read Crushing It by Gary Vee because he breaks down all of the digital platforms and he motivates the hell out of you to why you want to be killing it online and what type of life you can build if you consume yourself with trying to build an online business. So he breaks down a variety of the platforms, he motivates you, and there's a lot of nuances that he breaks down that by the time you finish reading that book, you're like, shoot, I really need to be online. The reason why you want to read Key Person of Influence from Daniel Priestley is he's very practical. He gives you a lot of practical things to do to build yourself and to start your business, start building an online business. So there's a lot of tools that he talks about. There's a lot of tests, there's a lot of exercises that he makes you do to get you started building a digital business. And I don't think there's anybody that breaks down the landscape of digital business better than him. So if you read those two books, you will feel like, you know what? You can do it. You no longer need a 9 to 5. There's so many different ways that you can make money and generate revenue online, and you will know just how to get started. So those are the two books I think everybody starting out need to read.
I'm happy you said that, because there seems to be this kind of shift on social media that's happening recently. Everybody's talking about they're all inspired out. So Keron gave you two books. One to inspire the shit out of you, and the other one with practical tips to get you to act. Right?
Yeah,
So you
that
have no excuses
inspiration.
now, right?
Yeah, that inspiration's a hell of a thing, and I mean, you. The thing is that if you are somebody that needs to be inspired by external forces, you're not that serious. The greats will tell you that they don't need to be inspired from outside sources because they know what kind of life they want to build and they're inspired just by that alone to go out and build it. Gary Vee says all the time his goal is to get you to stop listening to him. The minute you stop listening to him, he
Yep.
knows he's done your job because you're out there creating and you're not sitting there watching an hour-long talk of him not creating,
Yep.
you know? And it gets to a point where you get so inspired, but then what? You get high, but then what? So when people are saying they're so inspired out, that's because all you're seeing is a lot of motivational talk, but not a lot of practical steps to get you started and get you to the next level.
But I also think too that the information out there, like the practical steps, what to do, it is available, but people aren't just looking for that.
Correct.
Right? So they post about, oh, I'm all inspired out. I want to know what to do. But if you freaking write a step-by-step playbook for some people, they're
Mm-hmm.
still not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you see, the thing is too is that the people that are going to be writing step-by-step books are going to be charging you because they're giving you their shortcuts, their time knowledge that they have acquired, and they're giving you a shortcut and what's worked for them. So most people don't want to pay up front for that stuff.
Yep.
Where people struggle is, okay, if you don't want to pay for the knowledge from certain people and you want to now go on the internet and learn for free, be prepared to spend hundreds of hours sifting through information and testing it and trying to make it work for you. And you got to take essentially the longer road to get what you want done. And most people aren't willing to do that.
Yep.
So it's like you don't want to pay for the shortcuts and for the expertise of somebody else, but then you don't want to put in the time to sift through all the information overload that happens on the internet and try to see what you can make it work for yourself. So, people got to decide what they want to do. And at the end of the day, my favorite line is you're either going to burn or you're going to learn. It's one or the other.
Yep. Because just last night I was thinking about this whole thing. And I was saying, but when experts or consultants post tips on social media, you guys don't even read the entire caption, right? When they come out with ebooks and programs and free masterclasses, you guys don't even click the link in the bio. So what is it that you really want? And that's a topic for a whole other podcast. We will get to that. But I just want to thank you so much, Keron, for joining me
Yeah, no
on the
problem.
First Step
Anytime, man.
podcast, talking
Anytime.
all about entrepreneurship. One last thing, just tell everyone where to find you on social media.
Well, first and foremost, you can Google me because I'm Googleable, which is always good. I know we talk about that all the time too, being
Yep.
Googleable. But you can find me on Instagram at Keron Rose, all one word. You could find me on Facebook, same thing. My tech content's available at Droid Island, so you can either go to the Droid Island website, you can go to Droid Island on Instagram, Facebook, and you'll see all of my tech content and all of my entrepreneurship content on my social media platforms on my website.
And Keron Rose, the blog.
And KeronRose.com. If
Right.
you want to find a lot of the entrepreneurship, a lot of my journey content, and some of the technology that I use to help build my personal brand and my business brand. I talk a lot about that on my personal website.
Great. So there you have it, folks. Make sure to follow Keron and then come follow me
Of course.
at Jhalisa Jen Company. So once again, thanks, Keron.
Thank you.
Me. We shall do more of these.
We will for sure.
All right. Goodbye.
Take care.